Right. As you guys can see, we are starting a brand new series called In Charge. And in this series, we're going to be talking about some things that are definitely important. But what I want you guys to do right now is I want to challenge you guys to something. And so what I need from everybody is I need everyone to stand up, even though you just sat back down. Everyone to stand up. And you see your circles that you're in, your groups you guys are in. You guys are going to compete against each other, and whoever gets this the fastest wins drinks from the coffee shop, okay? So here we go. You guys ready for what this competition is? We need you to go from youngest to oldest. Get yourself in line from youngest to oldest. Not yet. Not yet. When I say go. Ready? Go. Not everybody in the group is in youngest oldest. They're done. Because they got the whole group. Wait, are you guys in youngest oldest too? No. Well, no, because you're the youngest? Oh, you're going that way. Got it. I misunderstood the way they lined up. They went youngest to oldest the opposite way. You guys, so after... Well, I didn't say right to left. I said youngest to oldest. Okay. They'll get, you guys, right afterwards, coffee shop and then group. Okay? All right. You guys can have a seat. So you guys are fast. You two smaller groups are faster. For the teams who got done real quick, what do you think helped you guys line up so quickly? Communication. Okay. Girls, what made you guys go slower? Too many participants. Okay. Yeah. So here's what I noticed. The teams who were able to line up the quickest, they were organized. Like they communicated very quickly. Like they said their age very quickly. They had a leader who had a plan. Hey, and then went from there. And then the teams that struggled, you guys kind of like globbed up, and then once you globbed up, you kind of just like didn't know where to go from there. And so I'm sorry. Maybe in a different team activity, you guys would win, where it's like an all-out brawl. You guys have more than everybody else. You can take everybody else. But, okay. I want you guys to think of it like this. When you're a kid, you're getting ready to play games on the playground. What usually happens? Someone takes charge, right? Someone takes charge, and somehow you had to decide. The person who was in charge had to decide who's going to be team captains, what game we're going to play, how we're going to play it, the rules, all of that. And sometimes choosing that person was super easy for us. It was like a no-brainer. And it was like, sometimes it was just like a group decision. And other times there were kids who would literally just make themselves the boss and make themselves in charge. And maybe those kids knew how to play the game and it made sense, and so they could explain it the best. Or maybe they were just confident enough, they were big enough or tough enough that nobody wanted to argue with their little kid leadership. You guys remember these times on the playground where you're like playing games and making up games? But no matter what, no matter how someone got to be the leader, the reality is that for better or worse, someone had to be in charge, right? Someone had to be in charge, or else it was mad chaos. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And over the next couple weeks, the series is called In Charge. And we're not gonna take a deep dive into like playground games, and so we're not gonna talk about whenever you play ultimate frisbee or kickball on the playground. We're gonna be talking about what it looks like to be in charge. What it looks like to have someone in charge of us. My hope is that maybe this conversation that we have might help us to challenge the way we think about authority and authority figures in our lives. And sometimes, and some of you guys may have some thoughts when I say the word authority. And so that brings me to my question today. What comes to mind when you hear that word authority? When you think about someone being in charge, how do you feel? I think some of us, if we're honest, you would say that you really hate that word. You really hate that someone's an authority over you. You feel like having someone in charge of you and telling you what to do is annoying. You feel like you can make your own decisions. I'm old enough, I'm grown, I can make my own decisions. And it's just really frustrating to have someone in authority over you. Or maybe you struggle with authority. You struggle with authority because you've only ever had bad experiences with it. The people in charge of your life are mean. Or they've used their authority to hurt you, or yell at you, or to treat you unfairly. And even though you know that every person in authority in charge is not like that, it makes you question almost every other authority figure that you deal with in your life. Or maybe you think that authority figures aren't worth listening to because, I mean, if we're honest, we watch TV and we watch the movies, and every time we see an authority figure, the boss in the office or somebody who's in charge, they get made fun of, right? Or they get belittled, or they're on the outside, or they're not a part of everything else. They're not the ones that get to have fun. They're not the ones that everybody likes. And so you look down, and how is it that you can follow somebody like that? Or maybe authority figures in your life feel more like friends than people who are in charge of us. And the people who the people who are in authority over us, they kind of just want to hang out with us. And one minute they're cracking jokes and making things fun, being super cool. And then the next minute they're bossing you around, making you follow the rules and clean up your room. And so sometimes it's a little confusing. It's hard to wrap your head around how that authority figure happens in your life. Or maybe you don't really mind having someone in charge of you because, you don't always love the rules, but you aren't fighting against them either. It almost makes you feel like you have a safe space because someone's in charge other than you. And I don't know where or know how you feel on the spectrum, where you're at in this. But what I do know is that no matter who or how you feel about the people in charge of your life, the reality is that we're all going to have to deal with this at some point or another in our lives. There's always going to be someone who's in charge. We're all going to have to deal with it all of our life, and it's something we all need. And without it, without authority in our lives and someone in charge, then it would be a world of complete and total chaos. Okay, imagine with me if in the world if there was no rules and no one in charge. Imagine driving down the road. No stop signs, no speed limits, no red lights, no traffic cameras. You guys don't know about those, but they're there. They're watching you all the time. Just a heads up. It would make the road, like driving down the road, a completely different experience, right? People would be reckless. They'd be cutting people off. They'd be doing everything wrong. Or imagine if there was no rules at school. You could just show up when you wanted, leave when you wanted, not have to do your homework, not have to run the mile in PE, not have to ever do anything. You get to eat all the food you want at lunch and actually be good food. And in this all sounds great in theory, right? No rules at school. Sounds great in theory. But at the end of this, you would end up not really being able to string together a math problem, maybe not ever learning how to tie your shoe because that's something you learned very early on in school. You may not be able to even put a sentence together correctly because rules and structure is important. My point is this: authority has its place in our lives. and in the world. It has a purpose. And in fact, it's part of the way that God designed everything to be. We have to learn how to deal with the people in charge of us, even when it's hard, even when it's frustrating, even when we feel like they don't deserve to be in charge, even when we're not sure they're handling their authority the right way. We have to learn to deal with authority, no matter what. And we know that there are so many different ideas and views of authority and what it is and isn't supposed to be. And I think the best thing for us to do is to actually go back to the beginning. And in the beginning, Genesis, in the beginning, God created the world. God created everything. He had authority over everything. He created plants and animals, the suns, the stars. He created the night sky. He created the water, the oceans, the land. He created everything. And God had authority over it all. But then God made humans. Adam and Eve were then put in charge and were created. And they were given authority over all the earth. They were to rule over and make it their dominion. They were supposed to be in charge of everything on the earth. And so that means that us as humans, we are in charge of taking care of the things that God made on earth. Of being in charge of was part of the plan for us from the beginning. And for thousands of years after that, people used all of their authority in all kinds of different ways. Some people were really great leaders, and others weren't. Some people treated the people and the things they were in charge of well, and some did not. Some people followed the law, and some did not. And all throughout history, humans have been struggling to know what it looks like to deal with authority in a good way. And then Jesus came to the earth. And when Jesus came to the earth, this whole authority thing got a little bit more complicated. At the time, the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, they had all authority. They held the law in their hands and told people who broke the law, who did the right things with the law. These guys, these religious leaders, they were the people in charge. And when Jesus came in, he lived like he had a lot of authority too. In fact, he even told his followers at the very end of his time in Matthew 28:18, he said, all authority, I've been given all authority on heaven and on earth. Matthew 28:18. So it's a pretty simple sentence, but it has a huge impact on our lives today. Jesus wasn't just talking here. He was telling the truth. When Jesus came to this earth, he came with the ultimate authority. He had the ability to literally do anything he wanted to do when he came to this earth. He literally had the ability to do whatever he wanted. And the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the religious leaders thought that Jesus was just going to crack down on the law and he was going to make everybody follow all the rules all the right time. And they also thought he would help them to take over Rome. But Jesus didn't use his authority in that way. Jesus didn't use his authority to punish the people who didn't follow the laws or to be the kind of person that people believed he needed to be. What Jesus actually do with his authority? He did a lot of great things that nobody ever expected him to do. He healed the sick. He treated women and outcasts as equals. He forgave people's sins, people's mess ups. He forgave them. He welcomed people who other people had turned away, and he brought them back in. And he told everyone that they were invited to believe in and to follow God. You see, Jesus used his authority to change everything. But he never used his authority to make people feel hurt or less than. Instead, he used it to make their lives better. And I think that this can teach us is this, that Jesus is the example of good authority. And that changes everything. That changes everything, because no matter what our experience with authority has been in our lives, whether it's been good or it's been bad, Jesus, we can look at him to understand that the authority in our lives and is what it's supposed to really and truly look like. Because Jesus modeled it. And when we see what he did and how he lived and how he acted with his life, we can get a glimpse at what it looks like to use our authority for good. Jesus is the example of good authority. And he's the example of authority we can trust and follow and even do our best to model. And when we're not sure how the people in charge in our lives are handling their authority, we can look to Jesus and to be reminded of what real and good authority can look like. When it comes to how we understand authority, Jesus changes everything, because Jesus is the example of good authority. And so how does this help us when it comes to dealing with the people in charge of our lives right now? How does knowing that Jesus is this example of good authority help us with the authority that we're under today? Number one, it helps us to show us what good authority looks like for us. And I think it can start by doing two things. Number one, think about what you know about Jesus. Think about what you know about Jesus. Think about the things you know about the way he lived, the things he did, and the way he treated people. If you're not sure about some of this, your small group is a great place to ask those questions. What did Jesus do? Where did he go? What do you mean? And talk about it. Have a conversation with them today, just trying to figure the Jesus thing out. Maybe even make a list together of the things that Jesus did that make him a good authority figure, that make him somebody worth following. And number two, look for that good same authority figures in your life. Look for those same good authority figures in your life, in your teachers, in your parents, your guardians, your coaches, your older siblings, your babysitter, your small group leader, maybe the SRO at school, your guidance counselor. Who are the people in charge of you? Maybe the way they use their authority and maybe the way they don't. Either way, they are in charge. And one thing that can help you follow them is to look for the good in the way that they're leading. Look for the good in the way they're leading. And they're not going to heal people who are sick and raise people from the dead. But look at the good things they're doing. They're not going to be perfect like Jesus was, but the authority figures in your life, they might be using kind words or giving you a second chance. They might be helping you at school or extending forgiveness when you mess up. Maybe they're teaching and treating everyone fairly and with respect. If you have someone in charge of your life right now, look for the positive things about the way they use their authority. Now I'm going to stop right here for just a second and say that there's a difference between authority you just don't want to deal with and authority that's being abused. When your mom asks you to take out the trash and that makes you mad, she's not a bad authority figure. You just feel annoyed that she's asking you to get off your butt and stop playing video games. She's not a bad authority. When someone is using their authority to abuse you, to harm you, to hurt you, or treat you in a way that makes you feel less than and feel like you have no power to say no, that's different. Remember, Jesus uses authority for good. And someone who is using their authority over you to do anything that isn't good, you need to speak up. And so if that's something that's going on in your life, speak with one of your small group leaders after group so they can help you along in this situation. Start that conversation with your group leader today. They want to use their authority to help you to have and support the support you need, okay? And remember, Jesus is the example of good authority in your life. And the truth is that we are all trying. We are all trying to figure this authority thing out. And that's why it's important for us to talk about it with our groups. It's important for us to talk about it in church, because we get the example of what good authority is. All right? I'm going to, as you guys break off into small group today, I want you guys to think about this one question. What is the one characteristic you think good authority should have? Let's pray.